So GM,
Yes.
a company I hope everyone knows. They own GMC, Cadillac, Chevy,
What does GM stand for?
General Motors.
Oh, okay. Cool, cool, cool.
They have a very general lineup of subsidiaries. So they had at one point Hummer,
Right.
if you didn't know.
No.
Hummer was owned by GM as well.
Oh.
That did they go bankrupt or did they just close down?
I think it was part of GM going bankrupt, and they said, "Yeah, no, we don't want to make
Well,
this anymore."
regardless, they ceased to exist in 2009ish, maybe 2008.
Yeah.
And rumors came about last year that they were planning an electric Hummer.
Right.
It was finally confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
It would not be a revival of the Hummer brand.
Mm-hmm.
It's just now a GMC Hummer EV, Hummer EV.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was officially revealed this week. What are your thoughts on it?
Ooh. Wow. Very general. Very, very general. My thoughts. Well,
I mean, fitting with the theme of General Motors.
General Motors, general thoughts. So definitely, I think it has to be said that the Hummer was the poster child for gas guzzling cars in the 2000s, right? If you ever thought of a car that gets like 6 miles to the gallon, your first consumer car you would think of would be a Hummer, right? So I think just the fact that we're talking about an electric Hummer, really,
Kind of ironic.
yeah, kind of is a little bit of an indicator in the general, how the world's going and how electric cars are kind of getting a bit more prominence, because if you ever said the words electric Hummer back in 2006, people would look at you like you just said two alien words put together. Like those don't compute together. So the fact that we're even talking about a Hummer being electric at this day and age is is a good standard that electric cars are gaining popularity. Now, with that being said, I feel like many people assumed that the Hummer EV would be a more or less direct competitor to the Tesla Cybertruck, right? Is that the feeling that you got?
I think it's the feeling that people got, that I observed.
Well, okay, so you didn't.
It's not my feeling.
You were elevated, right?
I observed the feeling of others. Yes.
The general consensus was that this Hummer should be a direct competitor to the Tesla Cybertruck, and obviously when GM gave the initial price of the Hummer EV Edition 1, which is going to be the first trim level coming out in fall 2021, when they said that the price of that was going to be $112,000 and 500 extra dollaroos on that, people got very pressed about this car being, about almost twice the price of the top end Cybertruck, and what is Hummer doing, and this is a flop, and why even go through with it if it's even going to be that expensive. Even when considering that of the, electric cars that have been announced to come out in the next year or two, the Edition 1 comes with, pretty respectable specifications. 3 motors, 1,000 horsepower, 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds, a range that's targeting to be over 350 miles. Like, this is very good specs. Of course, it, price to performance wise, it's still going to lose out to the Tesla Cybertruck, but for some people, just having a more conventional looking truck or the Hummer name is worth it. So people got upset that it didn't match up directly to the Cybertruck, even though looking at this pricing, it seems that GM is going to treat the Hummer EV as quote unquote halo car, something to get people talking about electric cars, something to get people kind of in the door to look at electric cars, something to get their name in the news. Since really the only, supercar-esque car that GM has across all of its brands is the Corvette, and they don't Chevy isn't ready to create an electric Corvette at this point, so instead of a supercar, they came out with this Supertruck as their, I guess, top end electric model for the entirety of GM. So we had the reveal, as my boy Gio on the other end of this was very upset about. The reveal was just a 5-minute commercial for the car. Reservations were open, but there was no configurator, so we don't know any of the options. We don't even know how big the battery is, and we don't even know things like towing capacity or payload capacity for this car. So even if it is a truck, some of the most important truck metrics have not been revealed to us. And so it hasn't been a full reveal. And as my boy Gio puts it, it was a 2 out of 5 in terms of reveals. Is that right? Are you still sticking with a 2 out of 5?
I believe I gave it a 2 out of 10.
Oh, 2 out of 10. Oof. Right. For the reveal. Doesn't even know what colors. We can't even create a good enough infographic because we don't even know what colors this is coming with.
No colors, no wheels, no battery size, no actual truck specs. There also wasn't an actual truck. It was all simulated. Let's not skip over that one. But
Right.
it's still sold out.
Yes. Reservations for the EV Edition 1 are full within the day that it was revealed. I think within even an hour or so.
Yeah. But adding to the list of things we don't know how many they're making.
Exactly. So it's cool to say that reservations are full, but when it's $100 refundable deposit and we don't even know how many cars were allocated, it's not as impressive. So we have the Edition 1, obviously super expensive and the top range specs, and then GM is handling the rest of the release of this car in a manner that I don't fully agree with, and that is that they are planning 3 more trim levels to come out after the Edition 1, each one being released a year after the other. So the base version of the Hummer EV, named the Hummer EV2, won't even be out until spring 2024. And it will be the cheapest trim level within this line of Hummers, with only 2 motors, having 625 horsepower, and having an estimated 250 plus miles of range, but the price only goes down to $80,000. And personally, that stat line that I just gave is barely acceptable to be released now, and I can't imagine how anyone could look at that car in 4 years. You know how much stuff can happen in 4 years? You know how much the standards of what kind of specs you expect out of an electric car will increase in 4 years, especially when the starting price is still going to be $80,000. It's not like they've severely are planning to cut down the price and have a $40,000 or $50,000 car. It's still going to be $80,000, and it's going to come out 2 years after the single motor Cybertruck is supposed to come out at $39,000 with a range of 300 miles at least. And they want to release this car 2 years after that. That's a supremely hard sell that I don't know who would be able to go for.
Do you think 2 years after the Cybertruck's release, the standard Cybertruck specs will still be intact? So if you look at something like the Model S, look how much that's improved in the last 3-4 years. It's been pretty drastic.
Yeah, that's without even accounting.
How dated will the Hummer be by the time the Hummer's out?
I don't. It honestly, it boggles my mind a little bit. I don't know who tries to plan out 4 years in advance. Especially when, like, it's one thing to say in 4 years you want a 500-mile ranged vehicle or something like that, or have some sort of specification goal that is clearly better than what is being offered right now, right? That's a far out goal, and that's something that you can work to, but you're trending upwards. But this is the complete opposite. We're almost stagnating. If I tell you a pickup truck with 250...
Technically, we're trending down.
Right.
because the later trims are going to be lower spec.
If I tell you, if I don't tell you it's a Hummer, and I just read out the stat line of an $80,000 truck with 250 miles, only 2 motors, 625 horsepower, and I say, is it a good deal right now? You would say no, for the most part. So why would you think in 4 years it's going to be a good deal when it's pretty safe to assume that everyone else is going to increase the specifications that they have in all their cars? And in 2024, you know, Elon says that the cutoff for acceptability is 250 miles of range. In 4 years, that cutoff could be 350, 300, even 400. And you're trying to say that you want an $80,000 truck with only 250 miles on it. It's a little bit insane to me, right? So obviously there's a place for premium cars, right? The Hummer is not going to be a high volume vehicle, but usually there's some sort of thing in these premium cars that can kind of justify the big cost, whether it's brand prestige, whether it's super high premium materials inside of it, or bleeding edge technology within the engine or other technology, right? And the Edition 1 kind of sort of maybe fulfills some of that criteria, and it can be kind of easier to justify the increased price. But there's almost no redeeming qualities about a car 4 years in the future having specs that barely would qualify as being exceptional today.
I think it's a little interesting how they released specs that, could have been improved within 4 years, like the range, the battery size.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, they didn't release the battery size, but
Nope.
charging.
Mm-hmm.
And then didn't give basic specs like, how many passengers it has. We had to look at images. How many, what do they call it? The cargo volume.
What's the bed length?
The bed size.
Yeah.
Just some very basic stats that was excluded. Things that will for sure stay a constant, but things that could have changed, could have improved throughout the years were given in advance, the 250 miles for the base. If they just didn't release that number, I don't think anyone would be expecting it to be 250. I think people would be expecting that they'd be going up, not down.
Yeah. So I don't really understand this. My beef with specifications and how they plan to release this car aside, the actual Hummer looks cool, right?
It does. I like it.
I like it. It looks like a Hummer. It's distinct enough that at a glance you could recognize it as a Hummer, but it doesn't look.
But it also looks modern.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't look 2009 dated.
Yeah. It doesn't look like a brick on wheels, right? So, I think design-wise, it's pretty cute. Big wheels, adaptive air suspension. They talked about how the entire bottom is plated in steel to protect the batteries when you're going off-roading. They put cameras underneath the car so you can see the exact terrain you're trying to drive over, maybe find a different route to go over. So the roof, the panels are removable. So once again, when you're off-roading or just want some more sun in the interior, you have that option. And according to them, it's easily all stowable in the big frunk. So there's a bunch of features that are really nice about the Hummer, and especially off-roading. Personally, though, I don't know what the overlap is between people who are willing to pay 6 figures for a car and are going to be willing to actually take it off-road. So I don't know if a lot of these features are being wasted on a car like this. It's one thing when it's on on a cheapish Jeep Wrangler or something, but when it's on a $100,000 Hummer, I don't know how many people are actually going to be taking it in the woods.
How many do you think they're going to produce? Clearly, there's a set number for the first year since, it is sold out.
Right.
How many do you think that is?
Man.
These numbers are super hard to guess because they range drastically.
Yeah.
You look at something like the Model 3, or let's say the Cybertruck did 200,000 in 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also look at something like, let's say, the Nikola Badger that had arguably equal amount of hype.
Mm-hmm.
in the coming days, not years leading up to it.
Right.
and that only did 1,500 in, was it 24 or 48 hours?
48.
So the range here is huge. Bollinger, which makes, I guess, the closest competitor to this Hummer
In terms of price, yeah.
in terms of price and vehicle type,
Yeah.
they have, I want to say like 10,000, but they've been around for a few years.
And even then, they're more expensive than this. Well, I mean, the only thing I could have done to even try to have a quantified guess is to look at the production numbers of the previous Hummers. So, the Hummer, the H2, averaged to about 19,000 vehicles a year over its lifespan, over its 8 or 9 year lifespan. And I have no idea what the Edition 1 could be. It could be 500, it could be 5,000. That much I can't guess as to how limited they want to make it.
Keep in mind the original Hummer was about half the cost of this one.
Right, but the H2 I looked up, it was MSRP about $70,000. So 60, 70.
I saw 61, 71 with every option, something like that.
Well, accounting for inflation, we're still not there, but we're closer to there. Plus they're renovating an entire factory to build all their electric cars. The Hummer is going to be built there, and I don't know how many other concurrent electric vehicles are going to be built alongside of it. So I assume they want the factory to be kept busy.
What does GM have?
What?
What is GM planning in terms of electrified cars? There's that Cadillac.
There's the Lyric. There's the Bolt they're going to continue doing, and then I think there's supposed to be a different version of the Bolt coming along. I think there's supposed to be like
potentially the Nikola Badger.
Right, potentially a Nikola Badger. Maybe an actual Chevy Silverado electric, which can actually be comparable to a Cybertruck directly, but who knows? So yeah, I don't think it's going to be super duper limited production, but I'm thinking somewhere in the realm of 15 to 20,000 a year. But just looking at specs
for the first edition,
no,
4 years from now.
No, the 3X, the 2X, like 2022, 2023. Because I'm honestly, I mean, this is probably an over exaggeration on my part. And I fully understand that, but I don't even know if we'll make it to the EV2. I don't know if we'll make it to that 2024 base, because even the EV2X in 2023 is 300 miles, 2 motors, same motor setup as the regular EV, just more just more range, but it's still $90,000. I feel like at that point it's going to be like, unless I'm missing a super big and wealthy Hummer fan club that will continue to buy these. I don't know.
That's the thing. Do you think that the original Hummer customer is the Hummer EV customer? Because the Hummer customer has always been portrayed as like the stereotypical gas guzzler, doesn't really care for the environment. Like in any cartoons, I think in Family Guy, American Dad, all of them, you could see him portrayed as such.
Yeah.
This is kind of the opposite fan base here. Do you think that the original Hummer customers are fans of this car? Do you think they're willing to make the swap over to electric cars?
Well, there's two ways to think about it. Probably no, but at the same time, you could say that maybe if they're really like diehard Hummer people, right? They might have been so starved for any Hummer in the past decade that they'll make a concession for this one because it's still a Hummer. I don't know how deep the Hummer love goes. Like, you know, people that like the Jeep Wranglers, right? They love the Jeep Wranglers. They'll modify it to hell and back. You know, they'll buy 20-year-old ones and refit them and all that stuff. Obviously, we know Tesla people really love Tesla and they'll buy basically anything with a Tesla logo. But I haven't experienced. I don't think I know a single person that has owned a Hummer, so I have no idea how to gauge the fanaticism that is in the Hummer circle.
But keep note, this isn't really a Hummer.
Right.
It's a Hummer.
It's a GMC Hummer that's electric. Yeah. So
Hummer originally was its own brand. It came with its own name, its own recognition.
Right. I mean, yeah, this is a far cry from the original military Humvee, but it's not like they just stuck the Hummer name onto something, called it a day. Obviously, we just said that the design is reminiscent of a Hummer, and it is a big, huge SUV that can do off road with big tires and whatnot. So some of the DNA I think is still there, but yeah, it's technically a GMC Hummer EV, and it's electric. It doesn't have a huge 6-liter motor in it or whatever. So I I'm gonna say that I don't believe that the majority of the Hummer fan base is with this car, but maybe a third to 40% is considering it.
It's definitely not competing against the Cybertruck though.
Nope.
It's going to be low volume.
Yep.
Cybertruck's going to do what? Hundreds of thousands a year? Eventual? I can't see this doing anywhere near 100,000 a year. Not at this price point.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe they release a Hummer Mini, but I think it will compete with something like Rivian. That's also a luxury truck.
Yeah, but even then, the Rivian is considered. Well, we don't know the full price breakdown, but the mid-tier Rivian, which is supposed to have what, 400 miles?
No, that was their top tier.
Oh, the 300-mile one is in the 60s. So that's still, half the price of the Edition 1 and almost half the price of the 3X coming next year. Next year. Sorry, fall 22.
And Rivian's going to be in production and delivering way before Hummer starts.
Yeah. So
is this car dead before it's arrived?
It's just a very bad price point because you're more expensive than basically any consumer truck, right? Even a fully loaded F-150 or whatever. Yeah, it's going to, I mean, what if you get really, really deep into it, you're going to hit what, 70s, 80s? That's still much cheaper than the Edition 1. And if we're basing on strictly performance, yeah, you might be able to compete with like a Lamborghini Urus, but I don't know who's shopping between a Hummer and a Lamborghini Urus. So
it's a hard sell.
It's a very hard sell. And
I don't think it was the right car to go electric. Especially coming from a company like GM that's not, they're no Tesla. They're not known for electric cars. It's going to be harder for them to sell this at their GMC stores.
Well,
I just don't think the customer cares enough to even look at it.
Well, what would be your premium GM electric car to get people? What would be your Tesla Roadster equivalent?
I don't think companies should be competing in the luxury performance sector.
Well,
I think we need more like Mach-E's, more affordable cars.
Well, if they did
entry level EVs before.
If they did, because this is the business plan they want to go with something, a crown before going down and making common cars. What have been your choice if you had to come up with a car from any of GM's sub brands to be like the Halo car, the premium, get you in the news, get people looking into the dealership, maybe and then cause them to look at your other sets of cars. What would you have made? An electric Corvette?
Probably a Cadillac.
An 18-wheeler Cadillac Escalade that's electric. What would it have been?
What's the premium luxury sedan? The CTS?
The CT6?
I feel like that's more.
Oh, well, I know.
That's more of an everyday car for the customer, right? While the Hummer is more of like a weekend getaway. I feel like that would have just been an easier sell, but what do I know?
I don't know. We don't
electric Corvette would have been nice. No one's done an electric sports car. Unless you count the original Roadster.
Yeah, there's no 2-door electric car that's not like Rimac. Or yeah. So I just They wanted a supercar. They said, we can't really do that to the Corvette because we just refreshed it, I guess, and we don't want to remake it all again. So we're just gonna make a Supertruck and hope that the words electric Hummer elicit a response in enough people to get them to come and look. I don't know. Obviously, I don't think they planned for this to be super successful because they kept it under the GMC brand. They didn't go through with the effort of recreating the actual Hummer brand and establishing their own like dealer network and stuff. So it's not as critical if it doesn't sell as well.
But it kind of is, because all these automakers are really using these first set of EVs as their dummy cars to see how well they do.
Right.
If this car doesn't do well at all, doesn't sell,
Mm-hmm.
they're definitely going to reconsider making more EVs.
Yeah, well, I hope that they'll be smart enough to correlate the high price with, possible poor sales, right? If this was like a $40,000 car with, I mean, not these same exact specs, but good specs, and then it didn't sell well, then yeah, they would probably. But I hope that Mr. GM, Mrs. GM, whoever is up there will be able to put two and two together and see that $100,000 electric truck just isn't gonna be mass appeal.
Do you think this has now given us like a timeline for all of GM's future EVs? Now that we know that the base Hummer won't come out till 2024, can we expect anything else to come out before then?
Well, if I remember correctly, and I might not be, they're supposed to come up with like 10,000, with like 10 models by 2023. So as far as I know, all we have is the Bolt, and we have the Cadillac, the Lyric, and the Celestique, which is a very super premium like Halo car that's going to be like $200,000 plus. That's not even coming out till 2024 or something like that. So, I don't know. GM obviously has to kick it into gear. I think I don't even know. And then in the next couple of years, I think there's going to be a couple models, but I'm not seeing much news about it, and they all seem to be like derivatives of the Bolt rather than their own unique cars. So I do know that if they want to stay in the electric truck market, there's going to have to be a different truck than this, because you can't. Rivian, Tesla, Ford's electric F-150, they're all coming out in the next couple of years, and the Hummer EV is not going to take up enough market space for you to have a significant foothold in the electric pickup truck game. Also, crab walk is stupid. That's all I want to say. That's the last thing I want to say.